Hi, and welcome back to the Festival of Place the Pineapples in association with the Design Council. This is a unique event where we bring together developers, designers, and placemakers from across the built environment to share their work as they vie for one of those coveted golden pineapples for place. We want to celebrate the best in practice to shine a light on those delivering the change we want to see in the creation of urban places. My name's Christine Murray. I'm the co-founder and director of the Festival of Place and the editor-in-chief of The Developer. We're an independent media company, and we make events like this and our podcast and website all about how to develop and support livable places where citizens thrive. So we're hearing from two more projects now shortlisted for the Pineapple for Sustainable Transport, which seeks to recognize active travel and sustainable mobility initiatives, large and small. Each team has just 10 minutes to present, and our expert judges then have 10 minutes to ask them questions. You'll be meeting or hearing from the judges after our first presenter when they put their questions forward, but I will take a moment to introduce them now so you know just how brilliant they are. So we have with us Kapila, Perera, who leads policy, impact, and communications at Design Council and oversees their work to measure, communicate, and influence the value of design by leading on major programs such as Design Economy 21, and he's also a trustee at the London Wildlife Trust. We have with us Daisy Narayanan, Senior Manager of Placemaking and Mobility for the City of Edinburgh Council, where she leads on delivering a citywide integrated approach to transport and placemaking. She's also on the board of Architecture and Design Scotland and a member of the Evidence Group for Scotland's Climate Assembly. She was also on the Active Travel Task Force set up by the Minister for Transport and is a member of the Scottish Transport Awards judging panel. And we have Kelly Clark, head of NCN at Sustrans. She started working in road, rail, and logistic operations, and then spent 6 years planning and delivering transport services for the Olympic, Paralympic, and Commonwealth Games. Now she's driven to help us stop burning so much diesel by creating places that allow people to walk and cycle for everyday journeys. So you might wish to support our judges and our upcoming speakers by using the emojis below me. You can see a little happy face, so you can send them some applause and some thumbs up and some hearts. And also you can use the chat over on the side to say hello to each other and to share your knowledge of these places or some of your experiences. So now, without further ado, I am going to introduce our speakers. I'd like to welcome Darrell and Jenny from West Gorton Community Park. Hi.
Hi, Christine.
Be great to, I'll stay with you as you share your presentation, and it's really good to be coming back to West Gorton Community Park. We heard from you the other day, but now we're going to look a little bit more in detail on some of the connections that you made throughout the park.
Thank you. Thanks for that. All right, I'll share my screen.
That looks perfect. You're right.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yes, so West Gorton Community Park is also lovingly known as Sponge Park to the locals. Is an EU-funded research and demonstration project through the Grow Green Horizon 2020 initiative in collaboration with Manchester City Council. This innovative scheme uses nature-based solutions to combat the effects of climate change and reduce stormwater flooding. The project also aspired to promote social cohesion and physical well-being, as well as environmental benefits to the city. The site itself is just a few miles to the east of Manchester city centre, and over recent years it's been going through extensive urban regeneration. The centre of this huge housing estate was to become the focus area for a brand new community park. However, the site had some real issues to address when it came to accessing the new green space and improving safety, as you can see here from some of the site photographs. The previous spaces were heavily dominated by road and rail infrastructure, which bounded the park on all sides. And this meant that spaces were left between them had become really underused and uncared for. Residents said that the spaces lacked amenity value and a sense of purpose. And more worryingly, they often felt unsafe, especially for younger children or disabled or elderly people. As you can see from some of these existing photographs, some of the issues were that there were no pavements where there really should have been to connect areas of the estate together. Galvanised steel pedestrian guardrails have been put in against pavements because of speeding traffic. Narrow footpaths meant that you could only walk in single file, so it was very unsociable. And there were desire lines that had been worn away within the green spaces that were actually interrupted by roads, so there was a very poor connection through the park. Community engagement became a really vital part in our understanding of the issues around movement, and along with transport surveys that were carried out, this helped build up a picture of who was using the spaces and how people were moving and travelling. All age groups were surveyed and asked to provide information on how they drove or cycled or walked, and whether this was for work, school or leisure. There were also discussions with residents about desire lines, about traffic speeds and any safety concerns they might have. It was apparent that cars were using the estate as a bit of a rat run to avoid traffic building up on the junction, but this also was a key route for children moving through the estate between the school and the youth centre, and also the climbing centre, which was a social hub at the north of the park. So there were some real safety issues to address. There was also a desire to use this central green space for amenity and leisure. However, it was currently seen as a bit of a social barrier between the two halves of the estate. And so the community had become very disparate and social values had started to break down. Part of the problem is that a number of roads dissected the park into effectively 3 spaces, so people weren't able to use their amenity space in a particularly positive or holistic way. It was critical that the new park brought together these spaces into one cohesive space to make it feel like one park and provide uninterrupted pedestrian movement along its length, and also to improve cross-permeability to help connect these two halves of the estate, to make sure that people had more positive interactions with each other within this shared beautiful green space. The master plan was developed to have 3 character zones as part of one overall plan. A woodland creek play area to the north, the meadows in the centre was for more quiet and passive activities and picnics, and a community garden to the south, which would become a vibrant new social heart space. The survey responses demonstrated a desire for spaces and routes to be fun and active, green and welcoming, as well as sociable and accessible to all. The public realm was previously perceived as dirty and smelly and polluted, given the quantity of road and rail networks around. We improved this in a number of ways. Along with providing new amenity spaces, we also looked at pedestrian and cycle movement and tried to prioritise this over traffic movement, and reducing speed for cars was absolutely critical. So a few things that we did to help with this was to incorporate speed humps and speed restriction signage within the wider estate to slow down traffic upon its approach. And then new large raised tables were created at key crossing points to create that sort of safe pedestrian access. Wherever we had shared surface routes, these were widened, and we introduced timber drop bollards so that in the case of events, these could then drop to allow vehicle access on in a more managed way. We improved sightlines by crown lifting the mature existing trees, and again provided raised table crossing points between each of the park areas. Secondary routes and were incorporated across the park, and then clear primary routes along its length enabled enough space for both pedestrians and cyclists. One key intervention that we made was to actually physically close one of the roads and divert traffic around the outside of the woodland park area to the north, which helped connect physically the 2 areas of park together in a much safer way. One of the unique and innovative elements to this project is that SUDS interventions were woven into the design, as was part of our EU objective. We used the raised tables and speed humps within the carriageway to capture water and divert the rainwater into the park through swales, rain gardens and bioattenuation features that people could actually interact with. The park would effectively act as a giant sponge to drink the excess rainwater and stop it entering the active drainage system, and that would reduce the risk of flooding further down the line at the city centre. It would also help to clean and filter the water of any road pollutants. We work closely with the local highways authority to agree the detailing and the maintenance issues around these SUDS interventions. These nature-based solutions to combating climate change and flooding were designed to be rich in biodiversity and colourful planting, and to encourage people to engage with them as part of the overall park experience. These are images on the left are part of some of these information signboards that we produced dotted around the site to educate people as to how the SUDS features were working. The diagrams explained how we were taking water from some of the impermeable surfaces such as roads and even basketball area and channeling them into attenuation features. Timber check dams across the swales help to slow the water and help with infiltration, but also give children opportunity to interact and play with the SUDS features. This feature here is an ammonite shell that we introduced as on top of one of the chamber lids at the end of this pebble rill feature. You can actually hear the sound of water trickling down. So again, it's providing another sensory layer of information as to how climate change is being tackled. We reduced the horrible appearance of the galvanised pedestrian guardrails and instead used soft timber knee rails as a protection measure against road traffic. Plus, introducing speed humps and road closures helped to physically slow down traffic or remove it altogether. As part of the aspiration to create a park that encourages healthy living and lifestyles, we provided a variety of ways that people could move through the green spaces and keep up their fitness. Paths were resurfaced in permeable buff tarmac and were widened to be inclusive, accommodating cyclists and pedestrians simultaneously. Finally, people could walk by side or in groups of friends. Sightlines were improved for safety, and cycle hoops were positioned against play features and seating spaces. Looped paths provide informal jogging circuits, and we avoided dead ends for safety reasons. Fun elements such as trim trails were incorporated into the landscape, so it became interactive and engaging, meaning that more people wanting to spend time there rather than just simply passing through as before. Children now have safe spaces to play with passive surveillance from the surrounding street and from seating areas for adults. The park has had such a positive social impact on the estate. We've created new definition between roads, routes and spaces, so wayfinding has become more intuitive, easing stress for people. New solar-powered lighting defines key routes through the park, providing illumination at night. Allotment beds and attractive sunken gardens provide opportunities for neighbours to come together and start to promote a sense of belonging and community, which they hadn't had before. Over 70 new trees have been planted, 180 linear metres of hedgerow to boost biodiversity and cool the urban environment and help absorb pollution. This, along with the SUDS features, creates a resilient landscape for future storm events. Harvesting rainwater to irrigate planting reduces City Council's maintenance costs. One of our SUDS features in action here, as you can see in the bottom, is during Storm Christoph earlier this year. Manchester University are monitoring the SUDS elements and also the social health and wellbeing aspects over a 5-year period to provide a database of evidence to support future urban regeneration projects. Recent surveys have shown that many people are now walking to bus links and using sustainable modes of transport rather than simply jumping in their cars to get to work or take the kids to school. People are also participating in active recreation and spending more time than ever outdoors in their cleaner, greener, safer park. Thank you very much. That's me done.
Fantastic. I was just about to give you a 1-minute warning when you wrapped up. It's brilliant. I'm going to go to you first, Daisy. Would you like to put your questions to Jenny and Darrell about this project?
Yeah, thank you, Christine. Thank you so much, Jenny, for that presentation. Absolutely brilliant. I love how you've created those 3 different spaces into one cohesive space and the SUDS elements. Absolutely brilliant. I have 2 questions, 2 quick ones. One is, it'd be good to understand a bit more about the engagement you've done with young people, especially with the school and how that connects with the youth center, I think you said at the end, because that sounds like something that was really interesting. And the second thing, it's just a quick yes or no, I suppose. Was there, most of the work is, of course, within the park. Was any work done with the local authority or the highways authority on actually reducing traffic on the surrounding streets, or was that not part of the remit?
Yeah, I'll touch on the first part, Darrell, maybe you touch on the second part. So in terms of the engagement with children, we carried out a number of consultation events through a long period of time, from concept all the way through to the finer details of the project. We took part in a couple of these actually on the school premises, on the primary school. We had a big container. We welcomed people in for a fun day. Groundwork were helping lead on the engagement side of things, and they've been absolutely fantastic, you know, providing leaflets, posters, getting people drummed up for interest. We played games such as tops and pants, which is like a Manchester way of saying something's good or bad, and the kids were basically writing on what they thought was tops and pinning it on a washing line if they thought something was great, and if it was pants they'd say, oh, we don't like that. Some kids basically said things like, I think I don't like broccoli, and things like that. So there was there was talking points there. You can latch on to say, why don't you like broccoli? Have you ever tried to grow it? What if you tried to grow your own? And there was all kinds of things you could bring into those conversations with the children. We also engaged with the teenagers at the youth centre. On my very first visit to West Gorton, there was a teenage boy actually hacking at one of the trees with an axe, and I couldn't believe it. I thought, what are we doing here? How on earth can we turn this estate round? This is a disaster. And I saw the same lad at the youth centre, and I said to him, you know, what do you think about this space, and what would you like? And he said, I just want somewhere to hang around with my friends. There's nowhere to sit. There's nowhere for us to just be together. And interestingly now, teenagers are using these little seating niches and raised walls, and they are spending time with each other. So yeah, I've seen nothing but positive feedback now from both spectrums, the young kids and the older kids. Yeah, a lot of kids just wanted somewhere to go and sort of kick a ball and play. And I think to have those multifunctional spaces, so they've got the equipment, but then they've also got space to just be kids and enjoy and engage with the landscape.
Just to give a kind of wider context on your second question, the site sits in a wider context of development. So Manchester City Council had identified this as a regeneration area. So there's a lot of work with the wider context in terms of improving the housing stock and the streets and the spaces and so on. So as well as being local to our specific project, we were trying to tie in with what was going on in the wider context, and that included elements such as housing, but also transport movement, communities, and so on. And this project was kind of seen as that link between the two sides of the park, because up till now, the space that was allowed for the park was a bit of a no man's land, and it created a bit of a segregation between the two sides of the estate. And now I think it's seen as this kind of glue that links both sides. So that's been really important, and the impact of how that relates to transport. They have been looking at this park to be dominant and a priority over transport, so that it becomes much more pedestrian dominated. And we looked at closing some of the roads in between the park spaces to help create this seamless link through the estate.
Yeah, some of the other things were traffic
Jenny,
calming. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Hang on. I want to bring Kelly in because she's got the next generation of cycling and walking to share with us as well. But really good to see.
Yeah, I've got a co-judge just joining me right now. Hopefully she won't start squawking. Yeah, no, thanks very much. I love a good green space project. It's great to hear about that. I'm interested in hearing more about. You mentioned that you'd reclaimed some grey tarmac road space into the park and kind of made the grey green, and that's something that's, you know, again, as we reduce car dependence and kind of move people from making private car journeys to other means, we get the opportunity to take grey space and turn it into green space. I'm interested in hearing more about that road you closed, and also if there are any other kind of spaces where you've reallocated space away from cars and to people as part of this scheme.
Yeah, it was an interesting dialogue we had with the local authority on that one, in particular the Highways Authority. During the concept stages, we sort of had a number of pre-app meetings where we discussed ideas for how we could close roads or divert traffic. And things start getting a little bit tricky once you get into the detail. I found, when it comes to surface materials and access requirements, and we found actually that on that particular section of road that we closed, there were a number of services underneath that road that still needed to be accessible, for the utilities companies. And so we had to work very closely with the authority to work out what we could actually do. So we agreed to divert traffic, but incorporate these timber drop bollards, so that if access was required in case of emergency or repair or access to the utilities, they could actually get that. The other thing we found was there were some limitations on the surface material. In some instances where we were putting in raised tables, the original design was we were going to seamlessly flow our landscape materials all the way through. But when it starts to look at the cost of these things and commuted sums and everything that comes with it in terms of changing the high-raised material, found that very difficult. So we agreed to have wider raised tables, and it you still keep the same carriageway material, but make sure that the design was sort of designed as sort of a big super crossing rather than a narrow little footpath, so that cars had plenty of time to realise you were travelling through a pedestrian zone rather than it just being a little small crossing point.
I think one of the successes that we had was from a sustainability point of view, because we had this concept about the park drinking the water off the streets, and we managed to work really well with the highway engineers to almost position some of these tables so that they were aligned with gully points, and we then redirect those gully points and take the water actually into the park and through these sud systems. So one of the important things about this project was this idea of being able to demonstrate an approach that could be taken to other parks across Manchester. And I think that was one of the big successes, this idea of being able to take water off the streets and actually take it, filter it, clean it, and then push it through the park itself.
There are a couple of comments in the chat that I'm going to put to you. So one is from Matt Pickering, who says it's fantastic. He's going to get on his bike and head over to West Gorton to check it out. So well done, you. But Zoe Sutcliffe is asking about who is in charge of maintaining the beautiful green space, and how much does it cost to maintain, if that information could be shared?
Well, in terms of who's maintaining it, yeah, this was something else that we had to reach an agreement on between the local authority sort of divisions, whether it was the Parks Department or whether it was going to be the Highways Authority. And it was basically agreed that at the point at which the water leaves the road, that would then become the responsibility of the Parks Department. And we had to design very carefully the inlet and the outlets to avoid any kind of litter being trapped in that sort of section of pipe, basically, and how it comes out into the swale. So the Parks Department took our landscape maintenance plan that we'd written specifically to help them maintain the suds elements, because it was outside their knowledge, really. But in some respects, the maintenance actually will be a lot less. In terms of like the wildflower meadows that we've got, for example, there's a lot less amenity grass to have to cut because we're letting the meadow grass grow long. So the costs were sort of balanced throughout the park. And I think there was an acceptance that the maintenance for this would probably have to be supplemented or boosted, because it was going to become a destination park because of what it's trying to do and what it's trying to demonstrate. So yeah, that was sort of a balancing point, really, but it's been agreed and it's been rolled out quite successfully now. They've had a year of maintenance and so far no hiccups. Everything seems to be running quite smoothly.
Oh, so thanks for that. Kapila, I jumped in there, but I thought I would take that question from the audience as you got ready with your comments for Darrell and Jenny. Oh, I can't hear Kapila. Can you, Jenny and Darrell, can you hear Kapila? No. Maybe do a quick refresh, or were you on mute? Oh. Okay, well, as he's refreshing, he should come right back in, and then hopefully we can check his settings on there. In the meantime, let's see.
Hi, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I was just saying it was just looks amazing scheme, and I'm sure through the pictures and everything, kind of residents are enjoying it. I just wanted to know if you had any kind of insights on how, if people are using it differently to as it before, in terms of particularly thinking about sustainable travel, whether there more people are walking through the park or through different ways because of, you know, thinking about design lines, or if, you know, are people cycling more within those areas?
Yeah, so far we've had really positive feedback. Manchester University are going to be carrying out surveys periodically throughout this 5-year period. And people are already committing to cycling more, especially for work purposes in the city centre. It's only a few miles out of the city, but before it was almost too convenient for people to jump in the car and drive off into the city. Whereas now that a more beautiful amenity space has been provided, people are walking up towards the main road, which isn't very far from where they live. And people are also just walking more in general to meet up with friends and neighbours. There was I remember speaking to one lady who said that there is a very small park area already on that side, but she said it feels like such a horrible journey to get there, that she tends to go to another park elsewhere that's actually a little bit sort of further away, but the journey was easier for her. So because the journey's now improved throughout the entire estate, and in particular through our park, the travel distance seems less for people. It's the sort of perception of it. If you've got a cleaner, greener, street-lined avenue to walk down, then people don't notice that journey time in the same way. So yeah, so already we're noticing changes in behaviour, which are really positive.
That's great.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was just going to add, if I've got time, just to say
30
that
seconds.
okay, I think the university angle on it is amazing, because they did a lot of surveys pre the design, and now they're doing a lot of surveys post the design. So we'll get some amazing numbers as to the impact that this design has had on the area.
Oh, and of course, we didn't touch on that much, but data collection is very much part of this project. I know from your other presentation, and how it can share its knowledge with other parks in the future. Well, thank you both for sharing West Gorton again with us this week. It's been a real pleasure getting to know it better. And there's some emoji applause for you. I'm going to now invite our next speaker, Alison Gregory, to join me to tell us a little bit about the Northbank Low Emission Neighbourhood. And are you there, Alison?
Hi. Good
Hi.
to see you.
Well, I'll wait till you're sharing, and then I'll see the floor.
So how's that looking for you there?
Perfect, all set. Enjoy your time.
Okay, well, thanks ever so much for having me today, and just talking a bit about the Northbank bid low emission neighbourhood, which we have a snappy title called BLEN, which is the business low emission neighbourhood. And the project was brought into fruition through the London Mayor's Air Quality Fund, which was all about tackling local air quality in local communities and promoting sustainable and healthy living. So we sought for funding in 2018 and have been doing the project throughout since 2019. And it initiated a commitment for local air quality and a continuing improvement. We wanted to deliver a coordinated focus, which included street initiatives to help improve air quality, but also sign people away from sort of the heavier polluted routes, to raise awareness of air quality issues, to make the area more attractive so people are encouraged to walk and cycle around it, and to really help businesses reduce their own emissions as well. We wanted the programme to be engaging, fun, informative. It's important it was quick to digest and very doable. It's a challenge for people to make changes to their everyday lives, so we thought that would be a really good approach to have. And also, air quality is not an issue that people can see. They're often quite unaware of it. So this is something about bringing a physical entity into something that you can't physically see. We worked with quite a lot of stakeholders. Obviously, the key ones would be Westminster City Council, who have been amazing and fantastic to work with, and particularly their highways teams. We also worked with Transport for London on a separate project, which I'll explain a bit about. We worked with Groundworks. Since we've been working with Sustrands, we worked with many of our businesses, and we formed a steering group. Oops. And then we also work with the local community. So you see here, this is a sort of analysis map of our area. You can see the shape is sort of D is where the traffic and the transport goes, and that's really where the air quality is least good. So we've been very aware of that as a bid since our start. And we have monitoring in the area as part of the London Air Quality Network, and we have our own monitor, and we provide live access information to our businesses. So everyone can see, it's very plain for people to see and understand the issue, and it's very transparent. The Northbank is within an air quality focus area, which is a target for the GLA. And air quality is also a high priority for our businesses and Westminster City Council, who have air quality manifesto and an action plan. And this Northbank business low emission neighbourhood has really set out some best practice for collaborative working. So here you can see a visual picture of the Northbank area. We have very densely footfall streets, which can be fantastic, but obviously it has an impact with the area. We have the Strand, which is a historic walking route, and civic spaces like Trafalgar Square, world-class institutions like the National Gallery, Somerset House, and universities, and the London's West End. But these are all attracting quite high footfall to areas which have suffered from air quality, and people just don't know about them. We also are within the central activity zone, which really recognises sort of the core urban challenges of city centres. So things like rough sleeping, antisocial behaviour, all have a huge impact on the area. It's a real 24-hour lifestyle in the area. It can be busier at 3 o'clock in the morning than it is even at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So these are all things that street interventions and street design need to take into consideration. It's also an area quite deficient in green space. Along the river there's a spine of green, and on some of the streets, but very little green for the local communities to come and enjoy. And even for the workers themselves and staff, if you want to go out of a lunchtime, it's hard to find a green space. So some of our interventions brought green to spaces that are really pocket parks and quite hard to design in, but we've done it with the business low emission neighbourhood. So here you see the street interventions that were to encourage people to walk off those main polluted routes and really find new and interesting routes on the clean air walking routes, which were signposted and greened during this project. We put in a range of 9 street interventions, and that's included 49 planters and 58 square metres of greening. It all was designed with healthy streets indicators in mind, such as places for people to perch, encouraging active travel, wayfinding, and making places feel safe and cared for, and also improving people's health and well-being. We worked with the Westminster Highways to install on the public highway. So this is a process that went through the design process that is safety audits, underground surveys, and local area engagement through the planning process to make sure that the neighbouring businesses were keen to have greening near them, and also would engage ongoing and feel like they could use them in the future. The planting itself was designed to be biodiverse and provide year-round colour. was needed to be very robust. As I said, it's quite a busy area, so we needed places, plants that would be really resilient to things like the urban heat island effect. We have quite a lot of activity at night. The hustle and bustle of city life means that the plants have a really hard environment to thrive in. And then we developed an ongoing management plan and agreement with Westminster to make sure the spaces are being well maintained going forward. So here's some examples of the street greening that has been installed and how it's being used. We wanted to build in a sense of community into some of the places. So some of the planters have seats built in. And this was something that, again, may have been an unobvious choice for our area, but you can see it's really well used and create a hub space for places for people to gather and chat as they come and visit the centre of London. We wanted the places to have an element of fun, and you can see some of the bollards have been painted in bright rainbow colours, which is quite unusual, as Westminster's palette is a classic black, so this is quite a step of innovation for them. In alignment with the greening, we had a range of behaviour change interventions which worked with businesses to share information and knowledge and best practice, but also simple doable things that they could help reduce air quality, reduce pollution and improve air quality. So these are things like communications within the business, improving their active travel and enabling active travel with maps and events. We worked with some of the operational business business teams to look at their own building consumption and boilers, and also the supply chain through delivery service planning. We held a number of events which included things like lunch and learns or briefing breakfasts, and this is where staff could get involved and find out how their own behaviour and individual choices can really help the area improve and tackle our local air quality. These were things like encouraging people to have deliveries away from the office, so back at home. Click and collect was obviously quite new then, pre-COVID times. And we really found that the staff were really keen and engaged with the ideas that this brought on. In fact, we worked with one organisation that were able to reduce their frequent deliveries from a well-known stationery supplier from 3 times a week to just twice a month. So you can imagine if every company in the local area was to reduce their deliveries by that amount, we would really help local air quality be improved. We worked on a demonstrator project with Transport for London and partnered up with Somerset House, which is the home to not only cultural exhibitions, but many cafes, restaurants and individual businesses too. And this was to look at how that individual organisation, the estate management team, could really start reducing their own deliveries. And we achieved a 12% reduction in general deliveries and 16% reduction through the consolidation with the restaurants and the cafes based there. So this has been now published in a demonstrator project, and we're beginning to show local businesses again how putting together and collaborative working can really help. We engage with the public.
Just 1 minute, Alison. I mean, carry on, but you have to wrap up within a minute.
Oh, sorry, I thought you wanted me to stop. Sorry, so we have a range of pop-up information, kiosks and events that people could come and find out about the air quality and also make a pledge to improving it. We encourage walking and cycling with activities like guided walks, area maps and wayfinding and general information to encourage people to get away from their desks. We've developed an active travel map, which is helpful for people now deciding to not use the underground, but to use their bike and also use it safely and understand how to maintain it themselves. And we're also working with the school. The young lungs really are affected by air pollution, so it's important that we've worked with them. We've had poster competitions, anti-idling, and we're putting in a pocket park as well. So reducing emissions is important to our very heart, and we've taken on our own electric vehicle, and we have a cargo bike demonstrator at the moment. So finally, we are looking to continue the momentum, but also continue the fun. And it's very much that as the project evolves, we bring the community in and along with the journey, so we can make our area more resilient and make the community thrive in the future. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alison. Kapila, I'm going to bring you right in straight off the bat to ask your question. Oh, we've lost your sound again. I'm not sure why. I'm going to let you refresh, and I'll go to Daisy. Daisy.
Thank you. Thanks, Alison. A brilliant presentation. Thank you. It's brilliant to see the collaborative work that you've done, and nice to see the pictures, the outcomes from what you've been doing. I have a question. I love the element of fun as well, by the way. I live in Edinburgh, and it's difficult when there is a city palette to have that. Just a quick question around the business and how you've taken, did you find any resistance to begin with, and how did you bring people along with you in some of these sometimes difficult discussions, I'm sure?
Yes, I think we found quite often that it was the issue itself was self-explanatory. That first map, people are quite shocked by the road arteries being such a source of pollution. And really, as a simple takeaway, you can reduce your own exposure to pollution just by that choice of route tonight, I've always said. So I think it's really important to give people tools that they can action immediately, and then that gives them the building blocks and the sort of the momentum to do more things internally within their operational structures. It's really important to get leader buy-in, but doesn't necessarily have to be done at the start. We found that sometimes the staff have green clubs, or we've helped set up green clubs, and this is about sharing an interest, like a social network within an organisation, and then that can build momentum too. But I think more and more we're all very conscious of our own responsibility, and the climate change extinction rebellion was literally on Trafalgar Square, so we couldn't ignore it.
I thought we'd try again, Kapila. Shall we see if we've got you back? Yes.
Great. Thank you. Sorry about that. So thanks, Alison. I was actually in the area on the weekend. And one of the things that noticed me, so you go through the green walks, just how much different they are. They're very green. They're very quiet. And I guess my question relates to, but there's still, I guess, a lot of people just walking up and down the Strand. So I guess and I know you talked about behaviour change, but I guess how could you explore how you've tried to change to make more people aware of that route, and how you've tried to kind of get more people on those routes, because it is just noticeably different when you are on those routes?
Absolutely. So we have a range of things ongoing. We have ambassadors which help people wayfind around the area. We work with the hotels, obviously, to share information to make sure that people that come new to the area are able to explore it safely and find the hidden gems, but also make choices themselves. And through the pandemic, actually, we found that more people have decided to do the active travel. They're less likely to go on the tube. So these greening interventions have made the roads feel more safe and welcoming. And I think that the immense footfall is always going to be a challenge to get that out there, but it's a rolling programme. We have posters and information at the London Underground, Charing Cross, the Network Rail interchanges. So these are all things about sort of disseminating out. And we're now working on literally greening the Strand. We've got Strand Aldwych as well coming along for placemaking and pedestrianisation. So this is not a magic wand kind of moment. These are very much building an ongoing demonstration of what can be done in a really challenging urban area. And it's not fixed. I think what we have also found that maybe we've changed opinion, that these streets traditionally would not have had greening. They wouldn't have had trees. So there was some thought that maybe it wasn't appropriate for the architecture. But now in new times, we're beginning to see that these things sensitively designed can absolutely help improve people's choices and make them feel more encouraged to explore.
Kelly, can I bring you in now and invite you to share your thoughts?
Yeah, following on from Kapila's question on behaviour change, it's obviously kind of great to see kind of things that are encouraging people to kind of walk in quieter, less polluted, more attractive areas. I guess the flip side to the behaviour change is trying to actually stop the levels of pollution in the first place by trying to reduce the number of vehicle journeys, and especially the number of kind of short local vehicle journeys.
Yeah.
You mentioned a bit about freight, and I'm really interested about that. But again, I'm interested in kind of wider context, like what has the project done either now or wants to do in the future to reduce the levels of traffic and the levels of pollution in the area.
Yeah, no, I think it's been a good start point. We're now part of a lot of freight discussions, freight lobbying, freight collaborative working with the estates around the area, so that the central London core businesses are coming together to literally review how an urban, dense city centre, which we want to thrive and be economic, can also function in this way that we consolidate traffic, we reduce our reliance on diesel, and we make the area permeable. People don't walk around Northbank and say, oh, I'm now going into a different area. This all needs to happen seamlessly. There are some challenges about the time of when deliveries can happen. Consolidation hubs, locations are difficult to find, but these are all absolute challenges that we're working on together with partners and strategic bodies as well. So I think the fact that we know that we've got a core base of interested member organisations that are willing to do their own bit to step up then informs future advocacy and policy, and gives people the confidence to go beyond maybe their comfort zone. So these are things that we're looking at in particular to build in sustainable leases with tenants and building owners. So you've got a chance to set best practice as people come into the area and set up new operational methods. Changing retrospectively is always harder, but bringing new ones is beneficial. And people want to come and live and work in an area that is healthy. It's an amazing selling tool. We don't want to, we want to improve our area, so it should work. It's just sometimes in the toning, and also it's very resource heavy. So these are things that we are working with now and will continue to do.
Brilliant. Well, it's come up to the time so quickly that we have to say, put a wrap on that really interesting discussion. But thanks for coming, Alison, and telling us about the Northbank bid and your business low emission zone. It's really exciting to see these places continue to evolve and change, and focusing on air pollution and all of these other issues of active transport that we've really wanted to see happen for some time. So thanks for that. And this concludes our judging, our live presentations for the sustainable transport category. And now it's time for the judges to retire and make their deliberations, which is a hugely exciting thing for them to do. And, we, as for our audience, this concludes the program for today, but we will be back here tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock with the shortlist for activation, which is all about how do you encourage life and sociality and connection and people to be safely welcomed back or encouraged to come into our public spaces. We also have a lunchtime talk tomorrow with Peter Barber at 1 o'clock about designing housing without corridors. And finally, at 3 p.m., we have a celebration to announce all of this week's winners. So you have to come for that. We'll be handing out golden pineapples. In fact, we'll be handing out golden pineapples. So do join us then. So thanks very much. And this has been Festival Place the Pineapples in association with the Design Council, and we'll see you tomorrow.